Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast, episode 88. I'm Steve Smith, along with Brandon Flanagan, Boynton Beach, Florida. We're at the FM Tennis Performance Center, and Brandon Flanagan has a new mug. It's the same color as the New York Jets. Give us an XO. Explain the new mug, Flanagan.
I've ditched the New York Jets mug for tonight. I've got the Ithaca is Gorgeous mug. And our mental performance coach, Nicole, I believe it's her cousin, is a Division I athlete at Cornell, which of course is located in Ithaca, New York. And I said, well, if you go there, you're going to have to get me an Ithaca is Gorgeous. Initially said a t-shirt, came back with a mug. I'm not disappointed. I'm happy she got me something, but she said, what do you mean Ithaca is Gorgeous? I said, Ithaca is gorges. So the city of Ithaca has a lot of gorges in it, but I know you have a connection with Cornell, Steve.
Yeah, high above Cougar Waters. I grew up hating Cornell hockey because they were so good. Ned Harkness, the Cornell coach, he won at RPI, won a national title in lacrosse and hockey. Then he did the same thing at Cornell. I have a sister who went there. I grew up playing quite a bit of hockey in Ithaca. Beautiful place. My parents lived there. My oldest sister was born there. Two types of people, Flanagan. Those from upstate New York and those who wish they were. But we need to get the show on the road here. But I think it's a little darker green than the New York Jets, right?
This is maybe more of the New York Jets one is a little bit darker. This is more of a Kelly green almost.
Oh, okay. And what do you have in that cup? Just water, right?
Yeah, just water. Very healthy guy.
They used to ask that in the Johnny Carson show. What do you got in that cup? The late Johnny Carson. Hey, I'm excited. Tonight we're going to have a conversation with Chris Cloer, tennis conversation. Chris has a lifetime in tennis, native of North Carolina, Western Carolina, small town Brevard, from a tennis family. Father Ernie and mom Pam, they run tennis clubs. Father, the tennis teaching pro, the mother, the manager. Siblings, we've had his brother Matt on, who now is the national coach of the USTA. I'm going to guess that Chris was born in '88. I'll have to ask him that. Grew up playing a number of sports. You can tell he's a very, very athletic guy. If you go on YouTube and you put in the amazing Klor brothers, you'll see them go through a shadow swing routine and then do a complete backflip and a twist in the middle. He won 2 high school state champions, was a blue chip recruit, enrolled at Florida State. He won a bunch of matches. He won he had 3 consecutive seasons with 20 plus wins. I never saw him play in college, but I was at Florida State. My son played he was a freshman the year after Chris graduated. But I saw Chris's competitive spirit when he was cheering for the Florida State team against Duke. 83 singles matches. The Atlantic Coast Conference, a tough tennis conference. The 2 Klor brothers, the combo, they have won more matches than any other brother combo in ACC history. Got into coaching right away. He's worked at all 3 levels. Juniors, junior players, college players, pro players. He's a developmental coach. He's one of those guys. I don't think there's many out there that can take beginners and work with them all the way, all different facets of tennis. In college, he worked at NC State. He was at UNC on this coaching staff. He was at UNC when they were in the Final Four. He worked for Harold Salmon, former top 10 player in the world. And certainly there he worked with juniors, but he also was a travel coach, ATP and WTA players. Shahir Peer, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, number 11 in the world. Actually, last week when we talked to Gideon Ariel, she's from Israel. I remember Gideon worked with her, and Andy Fitzell and I were talking about that, how he was telling her that you've got to be stable to the ground and have ground reaction force. Worked with Altick, 137 in the world. Vera Dushevina, number 34. Ryan Sweetney, number 64 in the world. He's currently based in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's married. Got a young son, Aiden, and golden retriever, Lucy. And he plays music. So he's going to, he plays professionally. I've actually been to a couple places to listen to him perform. That'll be fun. Let's get the guy on the phone.
It's too bad you never got a chance to see him compete. I did get a chance to see him compete in college, Steve, and you would have loved him.
I heard great fighter.
I'll give you one word: intensity.
Intensity.
Whew. Intense competitor.
With no, I've actually researching this. Just I have down his senior year. I have down the name of his college teammates. It's just amazing to me. All these players, all these people who played college tennis. They just look back upon it. It's like what Steve Denton said when we had him on. Still, that was the greatest time in his life. With but no, I've been told that by some of his teammates that they could always count on Chris to dig it out, gut it out. Using the phone. Here we go. This might be the fastest yet. There you go. Efficiency.
Hello?
Chris.
Steve.
Brandon and I are excited to have you as a guest. Conversation with.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Great to have you on, Chris. How's everything going?
Everything's going good. We've got some good weather up here in North Carolina finally.
Where the sky is blue. That's what
That's right.
UNC. I know you work there with. That's God's country because the sky is blue. You know, that's light blue.
Yeah, that's right. Or red, depending on what part of the state you're in.
With no, North Carolina's a beautiful place. My parents retired to Southern Pines, a small town near Pinehurst. So I found out North Carolina, a beautiful place from one end to the other, the mountains to the beach.
That's right.
Tell us a little about your beginning days. That's what we do with our guests. With we mentioned how you started a small town and played different sports. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your beginning days in tennis? I know you've been in tennis a lifetime.
Yeah. I think I grew up in a pro shop. There was I can remember looking back at some old pictures of me as a kid, just sitting in my dad's teaching basket, just tossing balls out. So I think honestly, probably my earliest memory is just seeing a tennis ball. But we were fortunate enough to grow up in Western North Carolina where there were, there were mountains, there were different seasons, so there were some fun opportunities that we were lucky enough to have. Grew up sliding down a hill, skiing a lot. The summers did get warm. We were a pretty active family, so rollerblading a lot in the summertime and hitting around tennis balls with my brother and my sister. So it was a we bounced around the home. I grew up kind of just outside of Boone, and then we drifted over to Knoxville, Tennessee for a couple years. I want to say that was like my 8th grade and freshman year. And then we relocated back to North Carolina, which is Brevard, where I ended up graduating high school. And now my folks kind of reside in Hendersonville, which is not far away.
In gymnastics, you started that early?
Yeah, that's right. I remember my parents the only gym close by us was in Boone. So, we'd have to, it wasn't far, but maybe 20, 30 minutes. They'd take us out to the gym and we'd, we were able to kind of learn some of their skills, which was neat.
Yeah, gymnastics, for years the Soviets, every athlete needed to start with gymnastics. Coordination to courage. It's amazing how many young tennis players right now are just playing one sport.
Yeah, it's true.
I know your brother played baseball. Did you play baseball?
I played a little bit of baseball. I can remember definitely playing some t-ball. I don't think I got into it as much as Matt, but there were definitely some years where I did play.
And soccer too.
Soccer for sure. Yeah, I love soccer. Played that in high school.
Yeah, so this with the Klor brothers, when they put a ball in play from the sideline, what they do inside, really, really good soccer players do is they put the ball on the ground, put their head on the ball, do a backflip, and as they come out of the backflip, they throw the ball into the field. That's pretty impressive if you haven't really been around gymnastics or around soccer when you first see someone, do that.
I don't think my joints can take it anymore, though.
And you grew up in a day where everybody played high school tennis, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's we've definitely kind of drifted away from that over the years, but yeah, I did enjoy playing high school tennis.
No, I like that expression where you're playing for something bigger than yourself. It's really changed. I spent 10 years in small city Tyler, Texas, and everybody played. I remember it starting to change. If someone did really well their freshman, sophomore year, because maybe the practices aren't up to par or the matches in the beginning of the season. But I think we have to fight selfishness in tennis, and I think that even all these kids now that are homeschooling, their parents, they're taxpayers. They actually can play high school tennis.
Yeah, it's true.
And I would say in this country, most tennis kids are not playing they're not playing any other team sports. So when they get to college, they really don't know what it's like to be on a team.
Yeah, it's I try to encourage all the players I work with and the parents too to find a way to get involved in other sports, especially at a young age. I can't speak, I guess, for this kind of new generation of kids. I've got a 1-year-old right now, but talking with my brother a little bit about it, I guess the organized sports has just kind of has changed. It's you need to be committed, full time. There's no longer some drop-in things or just seasonal things, I think. So it's become a lot more challenging for some reason.
Well, I think club coaches, whether they're at a park, club, even a resort, I think they should say, okay, we're going to teach tennis skills, cooperative skills, and athletic skills.
Yeah.
And on the tennis court, bring out the soccer balls, bring out the tennis balls. And I think kids are much better off to just go really, really slow from a technical standpoint. The research is not there on the red ball, orange ball, green dot. As Wayne Bryant says, they're great training tools. So I'm not really opposed to that. But at the same time, when someone's asking you, what do I need to do as my child transitions from red ball to orange ball? And
right.
It doesn't matter if you're swinging at a balloon. You want to have the efficient swings from the get-go.
Yep.
With junior tennis today, how do you think it's changed from when you were coming up?
Yeah, I think it's, we can easily touch on the topic that we just talked about. I think that, the athlete itself, I think, has changed a little bit. And, as a result of not having those experiences in the other sports and getting that coordination and different skill set down. So it's I feel like it's definitely become one-dimensional in some ways. Run around, hit more forehands, and it's definitely less network and overhead. And, if you're moving east and west, it's hard to go north and south. So, it's definitely going to evolve and change. But I think kids just aren't. They're definitely not. They're missing that athletic component. This is such a hard sport in general that they're missing that core piece. And you can give a kid some amazing technical instruction and tactical work, but if they don't have the legs to run, it's hard to get that horse to water.
I think of other sports. I think of baseball. I never really connected with baseball, but I played baseball. I remember one summer asking my mother if I could just be in the driveway, stick handling and shooting pucks and not play baseball. And she said her answer was no, it's un-American not to play baseball. But that's left my tennis teaching where I used to just use baseball terminology. I really love watching kids in a baseball practice where the coach is hitting pop flies, and there's just, because of the danger of players colliding in the outfield, everybody's just watching. That one ball creates pressure. That ball's up there, and can you catch the pop fly? And the kid who can't hit, they put out, or the kid who can't catch, they put out in right field. He's either picking his nose or picking dandelions. But no, I just the hitting, the throwing, just like what's in the air, what's good defense, versus offense, the pitcher's defense and the batter's offense. Like even football, I tell young kids all the time. I tell the girls the same thing: is that sit down and watch a football game with your father. And just it's not just a matter of from coordination to courage. It's in being a team player. It's also, do you understand the sport? I mean, it's amazing. I mentioned that you were a blue chip athlete, so tennis recruiting. But when you were really young, there wasn't such an emphasis on ratings, correct?
Yeah, there wasn't. The age of the internet, I think, changed that a lot. I can remember that, we didn't have a computer for the longest time. So surfing the internet wasn't a thing. It was, surfing outside, something like that. You'd come home, you'd be sitting on your butt, watching TV or playing video games, and I can just remember my dad saying, "Get outside, go throw a ball, go do something else." So that I think a lot of that has changed with all the internet access and all the screen time now.
Oh, my mother's passed away many years ago now, but she had that line where drive through an empty neighborhood, and she'd say, "All the kids must be inside playing with a butler." No, it's the cell phone's a curse. I mean, when I was a kid, we were told we were watching too much TV, but there was only 3 stations. Sometimes you turn the TV on and then there would be no programming. But, when I was a kid, we never watched cartoons because if you're hooked up with sports, you were doing something on Saturday morning, and that's the only time cartoons were on, Saturday morning. Now a kid, basically, that cell phone, they can watch cartoons 24/7.
Yep.
So Chris, when I know that your father was a tennis pro, do you have any of your earliest memories from getting out on the court with him and your brother, and what that might have consisted of at a really young age?
Yeah, I do. I can just remember, it was all about consistency. It really didn't matter how tired my dad was from how many lessons or clinics he had. There was always time for us to go and just hit balls and see how many we could make. And, we were lucky that Dad had a huge emphasis on balance and simplicity. And, I can remember Matt and I just, having, stroke contests essentially. Like, all right, let's, we're competitive enough to try and figure out who's going to have the best balance, who's going to have the best stroke, who's going to make the most balls. And that's, really that's like my core memory of a kid, hitting with Dad. It's just consistency all the time.
No, I've been unfortunate to be around your dad with a bad hip. He's still out there hitting balls.
He loved it.
Did he finally have hip surgery?
He did. Yeah, he did, and he walked in and walked out the same day.
But it didn't stop him from hitting balls when he had a bad hip. It was like, okay, I can cut through this.
I'll find a way. Yep.
With consistency, Roger Crawford just a couple weeks ago was on and disabled in all 4 limbs, played Division I tennis, and he had a great line that consistency is better than perfection, more powerful than perfection. I mean, obviously there is no perfection. Lombardi, we're going to chase perfection and catch excellence. But yeah, you got to be consistent in everything you do. Your dad and I are the same age and grew up in the '70s, different parts of the U.S. He's countrified southern, and I'm countrified northern. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York, but we're more cows than there are people. But With parenting, you, also two of the tennis family, there's four of you, right? So your two sisters played. I've never met your two sisters, but obviously I know you and your brother really well, and you've met your parents many times.
Yeah. I mean, it was we were for sure a tennis family. My siblings were pretty good players. Brittany especially. She started out at UNC Greensboro, and she played there for 2 years. And then she ended up transferring to UNC Asheville, which is closer to home. And then my youngest sister, Amy, started out playing at App State, and then she ended up transferring to UNC Asheville as well, playing. So yeah, I mean, they were, they got dragged around to a lot of tournaments as a result of Matt and I. So I don't know if their passion for tennis was as strong as ours, maybe as a result of that, but they, they did well, in their, definitely in their own world.
With, I'll come back to parenting. You're a parent now, and then you were parented, and you deal with parents. Tell us about Florida State. Were you and Matt ever on the same team?
We were supposed to be. So Matt graduated high school a year early. So he ended up going to FSU a year early, and so eligibility-wise, that changed. So when I came in as a freshman, Matt's eligibility was already done. So, if he hadn't have gone early, we would have been playing for 1 year together, which would have been cool. But it turned out Matt was my assistant coach for my last 2 years, which was pretty unique. I don't know if a lot of brothers can say that they coached their younger brother in college.
Yeah, really. Oh, that's another story with Matt. He hits the ball so well. He's so athletic, and he's good mentally. That hindsight 2020, that he should have played. I mean, I think that he knows now that he would have had a great run if he had played. So he like yourself, he started coaching really early age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. Matt, he's still got game, and he's got the head to go with the game, which is big time. I definitely lacked in that department.
Before you came on, I was telling Steve, he said he never had the chance to watch you play in college, but I actually did have the chance to watch you play in college, and said, you know what, Steve, you would have really loved watching Chris because of his intensity.
Yeah, I was definitely a game day guy. I wish I had put some harder work into my practices. I love competing, and I think it probably showed if anybody was watching.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Were there any? So there's certainly a lot of positives to being a really intense competitor. Were there any times where you felt like you got a little too intense?
Absolutely. I was, my maturity level was too low for really what my age was. So there were times when, I, emotionally just, not mature enough to control, some of those, and, ended up, probably losing too many matches as a result of that, and definitely not getting good enough in practice as a result. So, I mean, I was definitely, looking back and reflecting on it, I wish I was a lot more mature and, a little bit more respectful of the information and all the work that was trying to be put in. But, just too young and dumb.
Honesty is the best policy. I love how you're so honest with people as well. With music, that obviously took some time for you to be an accomplished guitar player, singer. When did you start putting hours into that?
Yeah, that was, my dad picked around on the guitar, and he's always had a guitar or two laying around the house. And my senior year of high school, I just kind of randomly picked it up and was able to learn, a couple chords and a couple licks, and just seemed to stick with it. So I brought that thing to college with me. And I'd break it out just when, the guys were over for team dinners and things like that. And then, they started pressuring me to, you should call up some of the local places and try to get in there and play some. And one random day in the summer, I called up one of the big venues there and just asked, what do I have to do to get in to play some music with you guys? And this is, I want to say it was like a Tuesday night, so it wasn't anything big. And the manager said, well, oddly enough, our Tuesday guy called in sick. You want to jump up there? And I was just kind of a little bit shocked. I was like, holy cow, I'm about to go play in front of a bunch of people. So that's really how it started.
I'm always asking kids, how do they do with stage fright? Like all tennis teachers, tennis coaches, there's birthdays. We had a young boy from Montreal. It was his birthday the other day, and so we sing happy birthday in different languages. And a young girl from Chicago, I said, okay, sing in Croatian. It just, no way. I said, okay, sing in English. No way. And I just said, okay, stage fright. We have a coach visiting from Toronto. He's here just for 3 weeks, and he's aspiring to do stand-up. So Delray, a place called Art Garage. Went the other night, and they were storytellers, poets, musicians, and a couple comedians, and we stayed to the end. And no, I think that we have kids. Can you tell us a joke, a clean joke? Can you tell us a story? Can you sing a song?
Yeah.
And when their heart rate goes up so much, it's okay. Can you sing Happy Birthday? And they refuse. It's okay. Shyness is a fear. It's just that you just know that you're going to have to help them with anxiety.
Right.
With anxieties. They just we all have insecurities, but I've been told, I'm not quite there yet, you have to be 80 years old before you realize that no one's thinking about you anyway. But yeah, it'll be, at the end we'll have you play a little bit. We did have Fergus O'Rourke from Ireland. He sang on our podcast. But no, I didn't see you compete in college. I did mention introducing you. I saw you as a fan. It was Florida State versus Duke, and my son was a freshman. But no, I've seen you play a bunch. I mean, I've seen you play juniors. I've seen you play a lot of juniors with your left hand, and I think that's a very, very important exercise to mention. From your neck of the woods, Ryan Fleming.
Yeah.
He came to us when he had tennis elbow. He was maybe like 27, 28, changed his game. And he became very, very good playing left-handed. I should say he is very good playing left-handed. But, there's a guy who's taking care of the nutrition and the fitness. And he'd play these teenage boys, and they would absolutely freak out. And I would say, hey, guys, he's still the same athlete physically and mentally. He's just playing left-handed. Plus,
Right.
He really knows to get to the net. My son Connor, who you know well, he, excuse us 1 second. He played a bunch of juniors, younger kids who would come in to visit. He would play them left-handed, and I used to say that he played better left-handed than right-handed because he knew he had to keep the ball in play. He has his limited ball striking skills. And people play with their opposite hand, they really know the value of closing into the net.
Yeah.
I remember Jim Lair told me one time that he saw Jimmy Connors beat a girl playing with his opposite hand, and she was top 50 in the world, but he would class act. He didn't want to reveal who it was. But way back when, people used to gamble all the time. That's because no parents, no coaches around. You just take your private lesson, and then a lot of craziness went on. Back in the day, everybody playing with a Jack Kramer or a Dunlop Max Ply, and you say, let's play for each other's racket. And it's good to play for some pressure.
That's right.
With let me read these names to you from your years at Florida State, and I believe they're all American. I know some of them are, their parents are not from the U.S.
Mhm.
These are, I saw this on the internet. There's so much you can dig on the internet. J.Y. Bone, Andrew Bailey, Clint Bowles, Ryan Boyajian, Bobby Dye, Keith Embry, Owen Long, Vahid Mirzad, Michael O'Shea, Chris Ryman. I need to be able to say Magic. How do you pronounce his first name?
Maciek.
Magic. And his last name, Skyhawk?
Psychic.
Say it again?
Psychic.
Yeah, so how many of those names I read off are, JY is coaching Opelka, right?
Yeah. He's been with Opelka for a while now. So, I think he was actually just with him in Houston when he won the title.
And Maychuk is at UNC or he's at Duke?
Duke. Yep, he's at Duke, and they're having a great year. They're top 20 right now. So doing some good things there.
Oh, he's a class act. I know Owen Long was a teaching pro at one time. Any of the other guys, Clint Bowles, or any of those guys coaching?
Clint was doing some coaching for a while. I think that he has gone on to professional poker. I think that is his current career right now.
Oh, that's right. I've heard that. What's Andrew Bailey doing?
Oddly enough, I just saw him this weekend. My wife and I and Aiden, we drove over to Charlotte. They're based in Charlotte now to see him and his family. He's got a boy just about the same age as mine, and so they met for the first time. That was the first time meeting them. So he is in banking. He is working for Wells Fargo right now.
I remember your brother Matt brought him to do a little video work, and I remember he had a great sense of humor and giving him a hard time. And so I went to watch a match when my son was a freshman, and I watched the doubles and watched the first 4 games of the singles. And anytime I have a chance to watch a clinic, a camp, teaching, I say, okay, I'll be right back. So I watched Andrew Bailey teach, and I said afterwards, "Hey Bailey, how are you going to be able to give that kid a refund?" And anyway, I just remember that he had a great sense of humor. What's Vahid doing? My son used to call him I think he called him Dad because he was pretty old. He wasn't your typical 18-year-old freshman. Didn't he play a couple of years of pro tennis and get reinstated?
He did. Yeah, he did. So Vahid is down in, I want to say he's close to home, Wellington. I think him and his brother they have an academy down there. So they're both still involved in tennis.
He was a great athlete. I know that he won Kalamazoo doubles with a palm-up serve.
Yeah.
When my son was playing with him, he kept it very simple. He just would keep telling him, Cobra, Cobra, Cobra. But, so my son had two different doubles players in college. One was Peter Cobelt, who had a huge serve. And Vahid really it's amazing how well he did with not having much of a serve.
It's so true. He was just an incredible athlete and great reflexes. So that's amazing that he was able to accomplish that with a pretty big flaw.
They became All-Americans with as a team, my son and Vahid. What about some of the other guys? Owen Long was a teaching pro, right?
Yeah, was. I think he's still based in Tallahassee, and he's not involved in tennis anymore. So he's I don't know exactly what field he's in, but he did get out of tennis.
Keith Embry, I remember spending time with his dad. He's the same age, a little bit older than my son, but my youngest son. But his sister, Lauren, right? Lauren.
Yep.
Lauren Embry.
Mm-hmm.
You probably, listeners, you could look that up on YouTube. Where I can't remember, something like it was a storybook. She's down like 4-love in the third, and last match out to win a national championship, and she. We had a gal played her quite a bit, Megan Broderick, who became a great player in her own right. But I remember Broderick getting close, but it was just like this girl is going to find a way to win. Talking about high school tennis, that was one of the greatest things. I was in Tampa for 15 years, but Brandon spent time with us there. HCC, Hillsborough Community College, complex with 28 courts, right next to where the Yankees play spring baseball, and the Bucks are across the street. So we basically gave the players some time off and had them go practice. Just had a light practice in the afternoon at other facilities, but because all 28 courts were being used, and I mean they were even playing some high school matches on clay. So Embry was a senior. She's playing high school tennis. She wins quite easily at number one, and she was just the best cheerleader, pulling for like the number 5 or 6 player to win. So and their team ended up winning states, and the next day she had an airplane to go to the French Open.
That's awesome.
That's a great story about someone who played high school tennis and learned to be a team player. But going back to your teammates, it seems like they're all American. Is that right?
Yeah, it's true. We were, I think we were, that was a pretty rare team, but a lot of those guys were Florida guys, not just American, but they were there in state, and so many of them grew up Florida State fans. So it was really pretty cool that a lot of those top guys, were there with me, and some of them were there with Matt as well. But yeah, that's pretty rare for for college tennis these days.
Yeah, there's so many stories. Clint Bowles was brought to me. He's already a very established player, and I was doing a slow motion video, and he started sending. His father was with him, and he started sending text messages. And so anyway, I changed channels from technique to character. But what was Boyajian's? Boyajian's brothers went to UNC. What's his first name? Brendan?
Brendan. Mm-hmm.
Brendan Boyajian. So this is a story for Stroke Production. My son, Mikhail, he went to Florida State. He stopped playing competitive tennis at the age of 13. So he goes and he looks back at it. He goes, well, I was really trying to find my peer group, and I went the rent-a-friend route and joined fraternity. So his fraternity brothers made him play the campus tournament. And so anyway, Mikhail, he played Ryan Boyajian. Of course, all the pressure was on Boyajian. He was, I think, the last guy on the team, and he played Mikhail in the Florida State campus tournament. So Mikhail wins it like 7-6, 7-6. He calls me up and goes, I still got it. But no, Brandon knows when he was really young, he was a machine. And then at one point, his little brother was like 4 inches taller, and he got mad at the world. And it's just a value for listeners is that it's a roller coaster. You got to fight through the ups and downs, and But no, so it's interesting when you look back at college tennis and you just think, gee, like Clint Bowles. I remember he won the 18 clays, the nationals. I can remember being in Naples with my son Connor, and he'd won the 16s, and I said, let's stay and watch the 18s. Mm-hmm. And the sooner the better that parents realize, it's the attitude of the household, and it's a lifestyle if someone's going to play college tennis. I mean,
so true.
It's just not that easy. Tell us about the Brazilian, Jonathan Scopiro.
Jonathan, what an athlete that guy was.
Did you train with him? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Brandon trained with him as well.
Oh, that's great.
He was at our place in Tampa before he went to FSU. I just called up Dwayne Holquist, the coach, and said, "Hey, this guy, I think you should come and look at him." But go ahead, say a few things about Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan was, Matt spent, I want to say 3 years with Jonathan. I think I was able to play 1 year with Jonathan. Ended up living with him my freshman year. He's strong, just insane athlete, hit the ball big, hit the ball heavy. When that guy was on, he was, pretty darn hard to beat. But I think he's down in Florida now. He actually married a girl who played for the women's team. He was a really good player there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, they were in Tampa. When he worked with us, he couldn't speak English.
That's right.
And being Brazilian, it wasn't. We had some could speak a little bit of Portuguese, but it wasn't like here in Florida you always have someone around who could speak Spanish. But I can remember putting cones down, 4 feet behind the baseline, and he thought he was supposed to be on the other side of the cones. I also remember, helping him with his resume, and of all the things, one thing he put down was he was Raven Clausen's hitting partner. And Raven's such a class act. I said, Raven, get over here. I said, read this. And we even went to the point where we found someone who could translate what Raven said. But Raven said, hey, dude, don't tell anybody you're my hitting partner. He goes, you're a sick athlete. If you just work on a few things, I'll be putting my name on your resume. But in all fairness to the coaching staff at Florida State, is that was a coach's dream. If someone could have got a hold of him, even when we met him, again, he was with us 6 months, but it takes a long time when I think he was number 3 in Brazil. I'll tell you a story. So many things come to my mind with Alex Hopson. He's from Champaign, Illinois. Great guy, and he was on the tennis team, but he was not in the lineup. So in practice, he beat Jonathan. And Jonathan was I think number 3 in Brazil. But then like the day later, some of the guys on the team, I remember Mike Costa, they came in, and if Costa had played him first, and this is what I just told people, if Costa had played him first, and say, for example, Costa, it was close, or he would have, maybe he won tight, however it would have gone, I don't think that Alex would beat him. Mm-hmm. I tell a story about my son Connor, who's in Sweden, and, he's not seeded. No one knows who he is, and he had some really big wins. Most kids, they will play up to their seeding. They look at the draw and go, okay, I'm supposed to lose in the quarters.
Sure.
They're way ahead of themselves with the draw. During your time there, did you ever get a chance to meet Paul Harhouse? Was he ever on campus?
He never was. Unfortunately, that would have been pretty cool to meet him. But no, I did not get a chance to.
We're gonna back up to Jonathan Sucupira here, Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Chris. So really, I had to look. I think almost every year I was at Furman. I think we played Florida State. I'm sure you remember some of those matches, Chris.
Yep.
And there was one year that it must have been our number 3 player played against Jonathan, Brennan Fippen.
Uh-huh.
Brennan won the first set 6-0. Got to be one of the strangest college scores of all time. Won the first set 6-0, and then lost the next 2 sets 0-6, 0-6. I don't know what happened there, but that's got to be one of the strangest scores I've ever seen.
Well,
That's got to be up there.
I would guess that Florida State, Furman played all the time because Paul Scarpa, he was a superstar at Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah.
I believe he was a coach there just 1 year, and then like yourself, he started coaching really at a young age, and he was at Furman forever.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul Harhouse, he went to Armstrong State. In my homework here, he went for 2 years. His last year he was 35-0 overall. He was 64-2. But what a physical specimen. And then he transferred, and while he was at FSU, 2 years, 87 and 88, he won 24 matches in a row both years.
Incredible.
Our listeners, if they ever watch the Jimmy Connors highlights, the 5 greatest points of Jimmy Connors at the US Open, Paul Harhouse is a guy who keeps hitting overheads. And Jimmy hits another lob. I think he hits 3 lobs, and then he finally, hits a forehand, the passing shot where you're going to definitely make the guy hit a weak volley and pass on the second ball. And anyway, that's value for our listeners to look up Jimbo playing Paul Harhouse. But he became number 1 in the world. But that's a great story with what he did with college tennis. Joey Reve, I read where he won 234 matches at Florida State.
That's incredible.
That's
cool.
Singles and doubles. And of course, when you look at records of college players, years ago they didn't play. They only played 3 years, which I think they should go back to. I think it's really perverse that a young kid, they don't join the team in the fall and they come in January and they show up and they're in the lineup right away. And but Stan Smith, Arthur Ashe, U.S. Open, Wimbledon champions, they didn't play their freshman year. I saw this on the internet. Dwayne Holquist said, when I came here 6 years ago, I was looking for the player who could elevate the program, and Matt Klor was the one who did that. After 4 years, now we're one of the best programs in the country. He's accomplished a lot, the hardest worker I've ever coached, and he's been a leader on and off the court. I know your brother was the ACC Player of the Year. How did you guys do as a team? So it's Reed, were you one of the better programs in the country? I know JY one time was the highest ranked player in college tennis. But how when you were there, how did the team do?
Yeah, I think a lot of that was set up. So my incoming year, the previous year, so Matt's senior year, they had a really big run at NCAAs. I think they made Elite Eight. They made Elite Eight right before I came in. So there were, Matt's 4 years were just, some pretty big building blocks. They had some great players come in. They had Itai Abugvir, who came in, and I was able to play with him for 1 year. But through that setup where they finished Elite Eight, I think we were able to, we got JY to commit. Machek was able to commit. Drew Bailey committed. So we had, I think the number one recruiting class in the country, because I came in with them that year. And so NCAAs, I think we hosted 2 out of the 4 years and ended up making Sweet 16 3 out of the 4, losing to Virginia, who was the 1 seed. I think almost every year that my 4 years, we lost to them in the Sweet 16. At one point, I want to say we got up to about 7 in the country, which was the highest FSU had ever been. So, my teams were a part of that, which was pretty neat. But
I know Florida State beat Illinois. Illinois was climbing, and before they actually won it, I think it was Jonathan who beat actually Megan Broderick's married to Phil Stolt now.
Yeah.
And obviously you're talking about high level tennis. I don't think people really realize, and Wayne Bryan's always saying that, is go watch college tennis matches, that the level is quite high. And I don't think that people realize, in my opinion, that junior tennis overall, it doesn't really prepare people for college tennis. Sure. It's not like they're going to the track, they're not going to the gym, they're not around other athletes.
Right.
And the pressure, I'd love to ask players like yourself, how many times were you in that 3-all situation where you're the last guy out? Do you remember how many times did you experience that?
I definitely did. Yeah, college tennis it really is a different animal. But I can definitely remember being in that spot, winning some and losing some. My freshman year, I remember being in that position, playing against Notre Dame under the light. Came down to me, ended up losing that one 7-6 in the third. I think Notre Dame was ranked pretty high, so I definitely felt the pressure of that as a freshie. But yeah, and then there's
for a freshman.
That's right.
Yeah,
you just experiences and
sorry, I keep interrupting you. We had Rob Krychek on, and I know that Austin, right out of the box, like your brother, he went to school in January and had to play one of those 3-all matches as a freshman. For the listeners, especially if that's in the tournament at the end of the year, where talk about a little pressure on your shoulders, and you're finally playing for something bigger than yourself. And I know I've had some players that crumbled a little bit on that, and it really set back their college career because the coach really had a question mark on whether they could trust them or not.
Sure.
So I think here at Brandon's FM Performance Center, Tennis Performance Center, he has a mental performance coach, and last week we had on Gideon Ariel. He said, and you do. We honor working on the mental part of the game. I think what Jim Lair did for us, but Gideon Ariel. If you work with a great sports psychologist and you have bad biomechanics, you're just going to be a happy loser. You got to be able to hit it. How about the differences in conferences? The Power Five, I think years ago, Pac-10. Now they call it the Pac-12. Is that right?
Yeah.
But with I don't think people would even argue with Stanford, UCLA, USC. So you played in the ACC. You coached with 2 different teams in the ACC. What do you think is the strongest conference? I know it obviously can vary from one year to the next, but what do you think is the strongest conference?
Yeah, I think that really is a tough question. Playing in the ACC, I kind of understand that level a little bit more. I understand that level obviously high. But it's the debatable question, and probably all sports, football and basketball. You ask the SEC guys, and they're going to say the SEC. I really don't know if I have an answer for a dominant conference. I think even for non-Power Five, there's teams and players that are phenomenal. So college tennis in general, I think, is just an extremely high level, Power Five or non-Power Five. It's tough to play college tennis.
Yeah, I know. Last year it was 62% foreign players on the men's side, 60% women. And a lot of times that's not because the foreign players are better, but the foreign players say yes to the first opportunity. Where the American kid, you're from North Carolina, they don't, perhaps now maybe more so, but years ago they didn't know UNC Charlotte, UNC Asheville, to UNC Chapel Hill, where the big team is the school with the big football program, and therefore the big budget. Go ahead, Brandon.
College tennis. I think of our time at Furman and SoCon, but I also think now with what I've seen, and we did play. I don't know if you guys ever, probably not at Florida State, but we did play a few Division III schools.
Yeah.
Washington and Lee, and some Division II schools like Landner or Erskine that were just local college teams. But now you can see all of these matches on social media, and you watch some of these points of Division III players, and these guys are really good.
It's very good. Yep.
And so, to any parents of juniors or juniors who are listening to this podcast, and you're thinking that college tennis is a piece of cake, I think they definitely need to think again, because it's serious. It's very high level.
I don't think you want to go to a school with the idea that you're going to transfer, but the expression, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. There's not as many junior colleges. Now there's 2 men's teams in Florida. There used to be 32. That used to be a great stepping stone. I just can tell so many stories that we had 2 twins that were football players, and they just trained with us for 2 years, went to junior college, and then afterwards they had 3 years of eligibility. And they played in the Patriot Conference. But no, that's one positive of many of the UTR. I think, like anything, there's the upside, the downside, positives, negatives. But Oh, you can look it up. Where what are the UTR? Some of these D3 teams, and I mean, you go all the way down to number 11 on the men's side, or I should say number 6, and there's a good chance that the number 6 player is an 11 UTR.
Sure. Yeah, they all can play some ball.
With with double headers. When you were at UNC or NC State as a coach, did you guys play double headers?
Yeah, we definitely did. I think, try to schedule those kind of early on, late January or early February, kind of coming off that fall break. Not a lot of guys are, I guess, as match fit or as match heavy as they sometimes need to be. So, trying to get in, a lot of matches and, a lot of wins to get the confidence up was kind of the goal with setting some of those double headers. And, some of that too is making sure that your win column is high enough that you're set for NCAAs. Give yourself a chance for that. You've got to be above 500 to, kind of squeak into the after season.
Well, with Paul Scarpa, I think it's great where teams they'll play a Division III, a Division II junior college team. I know years ago when I was at Tyler Junior College, Tyler Junior College would get to go down to A&M and play the Aggies. And Ty Tucker running doubleheaders. My son transferred to Ohio State, and I said to him, "What's the fatigue level? You get a little tired with the doubleheaders?" And of course, now the rule is you have 25 days, and if it's a play day, you have unlimited time to practice.
Right.
So he says, "Well, we have a practice in between matches." So they play their morning match, they have a practice, and then they play their second match. Also, I said this when we talked about Peter Burwash. Craig Tiley was with us forever, 7 years, and PBI had the PBI traveling show, and they would do these very impressive drills. And Tiley started to do that with the Illinois warm-up, and just not so much that it's a show, that it was just intimidating. Like, these guys know what they're doing. And just fast rotations where you've got 4 positions on the court for doubles, and someone serves and there's the person poaches, and they're all running around in circles, and it's like, whoa, what are they doing here? And but Ty actually, his warm-up is quite impressive. That in itself might tire some people out. So you just think, okay, they have the Ohio State warm-up, they have a pre-match, they have a practice in between, and then they do it again. But because they have all day, and I think what's happening with junior tennis now, that I think obviously your life with your parents, your brother and 2 sisters, that I could just guess that many times your parents were there early to open up, and they had to be there late to close, and there's lots of extra hours. But I think now what happens too many times is parents just don't trust, rightfully so, for the kid to just ride their bike over to the park and hit some balls.
Sure.
So they're, the practice is from, 4 to 6. They get there at 4 and they leave at 6, and there's just not enough.
Right.
There's not enough extra.
Right.
With from a coaching standpoint, what do you worked with junior players, you've worked with college players, you've worked traveling with pro players. What do you prefer?
It's honestly, me personally, I need the balance of being able to teach, but also kind of being able to just go out and hit. So it was a nice balance. But personally, I think I prefer the very young kids. I think I can give them the most information and see the quickest results, with the young ones. But it's a different world traveling with the pros too. There's a lot of different dynamics, going on there. It's not as simple as just ball meets racket, unfortunately. But it's a fun world to be in, but very different.
With Hopman, Hopman's one of our pillars. He helped us with the Tyler Junior College Tennis Tech program years ago by hiring people for the summer. And then we had a month at Christmas time where we sent kids down to do an internship. Certainly you had a chance to talk to your dad about this, but what indirect? I mean, your dad worked for Hopman. What thoughts come to your mind when you think of Hopman?
I can remember my dad telling me a story of being on the court with Hopman, and it didn't matter. I think he said he remembers picking up every single tennis ball around the facility. Hopman was every ball that's not in the basket is you lose $1. So I can remember my dad just making sure that he had every single tennis ball around the facility. And for some reason, that still sticks with me. I still go around and collect every single tennis ball. I don't care if it's muddy or wet. I'll find a way to still use it. So I think that's still pretty cool that that little Hopman trait still lives on.
Oh yeah, that's right. He used to find the players. First time I ever saw Hopman feed balls, he certainly was older by then, and it was a group of girls from the Netherlands, and they were touching net, hitting overheads, and they were not even hitting balls. I mean, he was feeding the ball where it was on top of the baseline, and the thing was not to change the feed. The player had to change the feed. The feed wasn't going to change to the player.
Adapt or die.
Just go, and and he was, lovely dear, again, go, and they had just so much respect for him. I think that maybe he's changed all these years later, but the way the Aussies used to talk to people was just so frank and so honest. With your dad and I coming from the days gone by, you didn't have to be politically correct. What are your thoughts on that today? You think that's changed like night and day?
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely has. And, I think the presence of social media and the presence of the cell phones is, and really just general cameras and anyway. I feel like kind of everything is under the radar and, potentially being recorded, things like that. But yeah, it's you gotta kind of walk on eggshells with a lot of things, and it's hard as a coach, as you guys know. But I'm definitely a little bit more honest with my words, and that's I think some people like that, and I've probably lost some friendships and potential players over that, but I definitely am not losing sleep over it.
With your brothers spent quite a few years working with Mackenzie McDonald, and I used to say, when are you going to send him to Ernie? You got to send him to Ernie. You got to send him to Ernie. And just with the idea that I think obviously with the USTA, for many, many reasons, they, I think, have to be, or they definitely, maybe too much, are politically correct.
Yeah.
I do think in college tennis, and listeners, the parents, the recruiting process is the honeymoon. And once the kid signs, the college coach, the really good ones, they don't want to deal with the parents. They go, hey, the kid's 18 years old, they're a freshman, and they've got to figure it out, and it's not a matter of talking to mom and dad about how their son's doing or daughter's doing now that they're in college.
Yeah, exactly. I think as being in that coaching world in college, it's I think that's where a lot of coaches honestly prefer recruiting most foreigners. Is the foreigner grows up in a very different culture and is doing a lot of things by themselves already. Taking whatever it may be, taking the train to practice or riding their bike to practice. Where a lot of people here in the States, it's definitely not like that. You've got people who still can't even do their own laundry, so they go off to college, and it's just it's a culture shock. So I think that a lot of the college coaches they lean towards that. I think as a result.
No, it's very common in Europe for a kid to ride on a train, and they go and they play an outdoor tournament, but in the indoor hall they have air mattresses, and the kids bring their sleeping bag, and they just get on the train and go. Of course, it's safer most places, but yeah, all the life skills definitely are a factor.
Mm-hmm.
With I think also too is that sometimes the kid is adapting to a different language. Not all the college tennis players coming in can speak English, obviously.
Very true.
With college tennis, NC State women. What are your thoughts on? They've made a climb. I think they're ranked. They've been ranked as high as 2. Now they're 3. Dave Secker's right there in Raleigh. What do you think about what's going on over there?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I was around when Simon Earnshaw took over as the head coach. And he's very organized and has a pretty big vision on what he wants, and he's got a list of players all the way down to the to the 12 that he's keeping an eye on. And I think obviously he coached Dave, and so he understands that Dave has a skill set for sure. And it's been pretty cool to see to see the pack kind of really take a massive jump in the rankings and result wise. And those two are doing some pretty special things, it's great for college tennis. It's great for their development. It's been cool to see.
I was fortunate to be around Simon. It was back when my son was playing, and he follows men's tennis. It's like he's got a memory for all the matches played the day before around the world. That's how they just have to. Just to be 3 in the rankings, but also just to be 1 in the triplex. You've got Duke, you got North Carolina State.
Big time. The level of tennis that's just right here in the triangle. It's pretty special.
How many years were you at UNC?
I was there for 2.
And how did they do? They were at least 1 Final Four appearance, right?
Yeah. So let's see. We had a Elite 8 appearance, and then a Final Four appearance. We flew out to LA to play USC in the Sweet 16, and we were able to squeak that one out at home. And then the final site was there at USTA at Orlando, and we played Ohio State. I think they were 1 in the country when we played them there, and just a big time college match. It was a very fun atmosphere. Pretty sure it was televised, and just totally up and down. Your typical college tennis match, but the level was so high, and those guys were able to punch the ticket to the Final Four, which is pretty amazing.
So when you coach college tennis, for the listeners, you have 3 coaches. So did you were you pretty much assigned to the same players, match in and match out, or did they rotate it around?
I think sometimes there were some routines that the coaches and the players seemed to like, and then sometimes it was just more instinctual, where it's hey, let me take this one. I think I've got some good advice I could potentially give, and we would go about it that way. But yeah, there were some routines, and there were some things that some guys just clicked with a little better. I think the volunteer coaching has really evolved over the past few years. I can remember as a player, and you too probably, Brandon, that the volunteer wasn't even a thing. Mm-hmm. And now it's almost a necessity. All the all the opportunities and different options that you can use that coach for is really evolved. And I think, almost every big time school and tennis program utilizes that, which is pretty unique now. So it's really changed.
I would say that's the way that most college coaches are entering the profession now. 100 years ago, many years gone by, if you were a successful junior coach and you wanted to coach college tennis, you'd have a good chance. You'd have a good shot. But I would say now, to be a college coach, you got to be a college coach. All the red tape and all the paperwork, and a lot of times the athletic directors, they come from basketball or they come from football, primarily football.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're part of a big time program, you have a better chance of becoming part of a big time program. And really, that's a sad thing that because college tennis, there's so many positives to it, but there's just simply not enough development.
Sure.
I mentioned Dave Anderson's name quite often in this podcast. He's got a great line about players, and he's coached literally hundreds of kids who played college tennis. You'll say, well, they didn't get worse. They will. Kids will go off to college and they will play. They get in the gym and they're bigger, they're stronger, they're more experienced, they mature. But many times they leave with the same game they came in with because they start playing matches from the get-go, and it's not like I think of the National Hockey League where players are drafted and they're going to put them down on the farm. They want to, it's kind of like Michael Jordan's high school basketball coach. He was cut, but a lot of people don't remember he was cut so he could play JVs and get more floor time. But then the coach was in Jordan's driveway every night helping him with his game.
Yeah.
And, so the number of matches you can play. But no, I think during the honeymoon, the whining and dining, there's a lot. Many times, I myself have had a large number of kids play college tennis. Very large because I'm also a supplemental pro. Coaches will send me players. But they get there and there's no filming, there's no charting. And I know it's difficult because of the NCAA rule where you can only coach so many hours a week, and the players are busy with their. First of all, they're on a college campus, and that's probably the most difficult place to be professional. But they, I don't think it's not like the mentality of the backup quarterback. With
right.
Who were some of the players at UNC the year they got to the Final Four, and how many of them are doing well on the circuit?
Yeah. So Will Blumberg, obviously, I think his title now is probably the most decorated college tennis player of all time. He's got, I don't even know what it is, a 10-time All-American maybe. But just standout individual. He's just we tell people all the time that he's a better person than he is tennis player, and he's a world-class tennis player. He's doing a lot of doubles right now, and he's having a lot of success. I think he's down in Sarasota playing right now in the Challenger. And then there's a Canadian guy, Ben Segoyan, a really, really good tennis player. And then American Brian Cernock, a lefty, one of your, I think he's from Connecticut up there. Let's see, who else? There was a big Danish guy, Simon Sundergaard, big boy, liked to come forward, had good volleys. Another American, Matt Kiger, who is faster than a cheetah. The boy had some wheels. So that was a really, really good team. And then there was a North Carolina guy, Bo Boyden, who's just the epitome of blue collar. That guy is probably the hardest worker I'd ever been around. So he was. So those were some pretty good tennis players on that team.
What was the name of the Bloomberg, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think, I'm pretty sure bet dollars to donuts that Ryan Ginley up in Connecticut, that's where he's from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Ginley worked with when he was younger. With, that transition to make it to the pros, how long do you think, you used to hear all the time, 3 years. I mean, for someone to stay out there, it's kind of the war of financial attrition. Roger Federer's father said, if you're not ranked 70 in the world after 3 years, you're going back to school. What are your thoughts on that for someone to try to make it?
Yeah, I think I think it's hard. It's a challenge. I think that you want to try to give yourself some benchmarks to try to meet. But at the same time, can you, like you said, can you financially keep your head above water and can you stay healthy? Too often guys just are not able to take care of their bodies and they get hurt, and then they end up trying to play again, and time is not your friend when you're really trying to make it in that world. So it's a tough lifestyle.
I know that you and your brother have worked mutually or worked as a team with different players. Patrick Gibson, he's somebody who's had a bad run with injuries on. I know I spent a lot of time with Patrick. I talk to Chris all the time, or listeners. We tire a little bit, people asking, are you GreatBase? Are you GreatBase? And
right.
In some ways it's flattering that people call it a cult, but it's I would say it's a network. I would say it's a cult. It's based on science and logic and history.
Yeah.
But Patrick, we have film of Patrick. Like yourself, he loved to compete, and when he used to be around, I'd say, "All right, Gibson, we're playing left-handed now." And in fact, he has quite a few wins over another player, Victor Lilov, who's now trying to play pro tennis. But Gibson, where's he with his injuries? Are you in the loop on that? I know Matt, being with the USTA, he has a pretty good handle on where people are with their tennis.
Yeah, Kip is. He seems to be finally healthy again, and I think he's about to get back on the road and try to give it another go. He's had a run of bad luck, but Kip is pretty resilient. Like you said, he's competitive as all heck. So he's ready to go. So hopefully he can stay healthy, and that's really going to be the biggest thing, I think, for him.
I said to his father one time, he was a heart surgeon, I said, tennis just eats people up and spits them out. And he quickly said, so's life. And I just never forget that. And of course, tennis is a microcosm of life. People are trying to play for money. We try not to talk about their tennis games. But Gibson, I can remember being at the Easter Bowl, and he won the doubles in the 18s. They're playing one up, one back, and we just struggled getting him to go forward. I know Matt told me not too long ago that Patrick had called him up from South America or what have you, and said, "Hey, what do I need to do?" And he goes, "You need to do the same thing you're told to do when you were 12." and I think that's where people they just don't understand. Understand. People, we have a boatload of critics. I'd say for everybody who perhaps respects what we're doing, there's maybe two who don't. But
Sure.
the two who don't have no idea what we're doing.
Right.
You'd have to, you can't come and hang around for 3 days or 3 weeks to really get a handle on what we're doing. But I noticed with Lilov, seeing him play 2 matches, and like Patrick, he spent years with us, and all the development's documented. But I do think that people are told. I know people are told that, and I think Craig O'Shaughnessy with the Brain Game, we had Warren Pretorius on, who, he wrote the article. It's a big lie. You just can't go to the net.
Yeah.
I think with the other day on TV, Peter Korda and is Carlos
Alcaraz.
People they should have the eye where they can just see these guys are just so fundamentally sound. I mean, it's not, people are, some people told me, Peter Corder's kid, Sebastian's going to get killed. And I said, I don't know. He can really penetrate. He can really drive the ball through the court.
Yep.
And world class is world class.
That's right.
Brandon, what do you got, Brandon?
I'd love to have you take us through the day in the life of Chris Cloer. You have a 1-year-old coaching tennis, and you're still getting out there. And are you still finding time to practice and play your music?
Yeah. It's life's definitely changed since this little guy came in. But obviously for the better. He's, it's early morning, and sometimes it's late night. But we've got a lot of helping hands here. My wife's family is around, and so it's just big time that we've got those extra hands, and and so my wife has always loved that I play music, and she's super supportive of that. So anytime that I tell her, like, hey, honey, I've got this gig coming up, she's like, oh, let me know the details so I can, send this out to all my friends, and, we can get a good crowd out there. So she's been super supportive of that, which has been nice over the years, because I know it can be a little draining when you spend all those nights trying to play music.
And you predominantly coach juniors still?
Still coaching juniors. Yep. It's mostly juniors. So, when I kind of left Carolina, the goal was to go out and kind of help JJ Wolf on the road a little bit. And I spent some time with Katrina Scott working on some things. And then the pandemic hit, and that pretty much shut everything down. So that led me to still stick around here in Raleigh, and I've got a small club that I do all my work at, which is actually, it's actually been nice, because being on the road when you've got a 1-year-old is not ideal.
With I got to come back to the golden retriever, but with JJ Wolf, Trina Scott, they both have visited. Actually, JJ was here working with some members of Brandon's performance team, a physical therapist when he's playing in Delray. Mm-hmm. I just walk by and look in the window, and there's JJ Wolf. I know he's had some great wins as a result, but he worked with Andy Fitzell, and
right.
I think years ago, what touring pros would do is they go back and work with their coach, and it didn't matter if the coach didn't have anybody to hit with him. And I think that was very, very good. That the touring pro wasn't hitting with super players.
Yeah,
they're just Peter Burwash used to say that, hey, it's great, the ball's really slow, you're not competing, and you really can work on things. But I do think that like a Katrina Scott or JJ Wolf, they would be best to base themselves like Katrina Scott should have based herself in Raleigh. And it would have been so much better. Same thing with JJ, if he would work with you or Andy. Max Cressy, like yourself, Andy, he's traveling quite a bit now, but, not to be able to commit, like, okay, I'm just going to do this 365, 24/7.
Yeah.
But, at one point we talked about even in Tampa having a program where a young coach could come and work with us because we have information. There's so many people on the tour. I know Matt has a really good relationship with Mackenzie McDonald's coach. He played at NC State, correct?
Correct. Jaime. Mm-hmm.
What's Jaime's name? Jaime. The name of the coach.
Totally blanking here.
That's sorry. What do you say about me, Flanagan? Can't remember anything.
Kraft.
Can't remember a blanking thing.
Correct.
But no, that Jaime confers with Matt. But Coming back to, we can't forget Lucy, the golden retriever. I'd like to give kids nicknames that I only use for the day so they don't make them stick. But I do ask people, if you were a dog, it's a good question to ask a teenage boy. If you were a dog, would you be a French poodle or would you be a pit bull? And, so anyway, Johnson, he's finishing up his first year on a mission. I mean, I used to just call him the golden retriever. Johnson, we know everybody loves you, but I still think that his best tennis could be ahead of him. You think of 2 years, and obviously he's growing up so much, serving, going through everything, all his responsibilities on the mission. But anyway, I think that's something for the listeners who coach is stopping. You want to be a bulldog.
You want to be a bulldog. Yeah.
Want to be a bulldog. Old school coaching. Old school, new school. There is no school. One line I use from you is kids are just trying to launch missiles. And I like to give credit where credit's due. That's where I got to keep working on my memory. I want to forget. I heard this from so-and-so. And I'll be able to tell you who so-and-so is. But I think that's so well put. The kids are just out there trying to launch missiles. I was watching an academy the other day where every weekend they host a tournament. And, I mean, it's Macy's. And, Macy is just so passionate about tennis and a Pied Piper. And, he's definitely had his impact on the game. But it's just like everybody's just running around backhands. They get extreme grips. They're ending up totally off balance. And it's just forehand. What do you comment on that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's tough. But that's where the winning is confusing comes in because, it's that kid wins to a certain level, and he probably beats my kid who has decent grips and swings, and so that's where it's all kind of foobar at the end of the day. But that's where the game is just kind of one-dimensional in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, it just comes down to the basics of grip, swing, and body. You have a good grip, you have a good swing, you're probably going to have some pretty good body control. But you got to also have some wheels that can get you to the ball to have a decent swing on it. And there's some guys out there who can launch a pretty big forehand for 2 or 3 shots and they can beat the kid who really doesn't have the wheels. So it's tennis is tough.
With today on the Tennis Channel, they showed a film of Federer working in a small, appeared to be a private gym. I would guess it was at his house. But he's shadow swinging. He's doing footwork exercises and he's shadow swinging awesome. In front of a mirror. Yeah. But Jack Sock, not to take anything away from Jack, he's got some Grand Slam titles. I would have never bet on him being a doubles champion at Wimbledon twice. But if you were to copy someone, it's easier to say I'm going to play like Sock than I'm going to play like Federer. Just grip it and rip it, and so that slow approach to to really take your time and develop an all-court game. Years ago, your dad and I would have been in line saying what that kid's doing in the 18s won't work. Mm-hmm. Of course, back in the day, people playing with wooden rackets, but now they play that way all the way through, and they're playing one-up, one-back doubles. And
right.
Mark Walpole was on. I think he had a very good line. He goes, everyone's not coming from the same position. Everyone's not starting equal. As you said, some kids just have major wheels. Genetically, they're gifted. But the 3 M's, I think, with the mind is first, and you really have to have the mobility second, because you got it.
Yep.
Footwork's more important than racket work because you got to get in position. Say for example, someone has a great forehand. Can you even serve to the backhand?
Right.
Like, in all fairness, Steve Johnson. I mean, we say all the time that a guy like Pete Sampras would have served to his backhand and volleyed to his backhand, and, and he would have held fairly easily. and he would have just been hanging in there to attack the backhand to get his break. And Braden used to always say, the higher level you go, it's just two or three things. It's really, in the end, it's your game. When you go out, can you play your game? It's not like there's all this secret sauce, some sophisticated plan. Here's some things that I think that you do, we can bring up that are almost lost, is static balance training and dead ball feeding. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think balance is just beyond important, obviously. You had, I think I'd read a post yesterday or the other day where you had put a quote up there that I say all the time to the players I work with, whether they're, grassroots or whether they're adults. You can't fire a cannon from a canoe. So there has to be a foundation for balance. So, I think going slow and working on those things, you can, you can get the player to understand the importance of balance and understand that, balance equals control. So, I'm a huge fan of doing that all the time. Hopefully it just pays off for that kid. You just never know.
We've had a conversation. I've had a conversation with Ed Weiss, who's going to be on the podcast. He wrote a book about Welby Van Horn, and I talked to Stuart, his son, and I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is the two of them are going to give it the green light, and for free, the book will be on our website. But Welby, I remember, Braden, intellectual curiosity. I was studying under Vic, and I remember him asking me, "Tell me how Welby did it." And I think that's something that's not so prevalent today. Where, and I don't think it can be done by looking at a YouTube clip or, and I think there's some positives for sure with remote teaching. But I think if you're going to learn from someone, you need to spend quite a bit of time with that person.
Sure.
Yep. With Welby, he was all about balance. But what's so important is you got to get in position. It's amazing how many kids are starting with a Western grip and off the forehand side, and they're swiveling. It's like they're in a swivel chair. Mm-hmm. Contact points at shoulder level, and that's how they started when they were really young, and they just continue to play that way. And you film them and you say, hey, the ball is, you're not going to get a very short hitting zone. You're not going to be able to do much with the ball if you're hitting above shoulder level. This morning we had a practice. We spent an hour and a half is working slowly and say, okay, now play this way. We want to keep score, play on the rise, get in there, play the ball at waist level. And next thing you know, they're just backing up and they're in the neutral defensive area, the red zone, hitting forehands above their shoulder. And I love the Roger Federer quote, I didn't know you're supposed to win in practice. People don't practice. People don't practice in practice.
Yeah.
But listener's static balance is stationary position, standing in one place. Welby used to have the players just stand right at the tee line, and that's where you do the coaching. It's just like taking a lump of clay and just, the artist goes to work and you just mold the player.
Yeah.
A dead ball feed. We worked with a young player today who's visiting and for the first time, just 8 years old, and they can rally quite well, and they're already training where people are on both sides of the net. Mm-hmm. And that makes it fun, and that hey, this is progressing. They're rallying, and this is tennis, and they have to change every grip. They have to change every swing. Their back swings are behind their back, and they're going outside in, and the contact point's right next to their belly button. But slow down and get it right. Right. Listeners, a live ball feed means it's a competitive ball. The coach puts the ball in play and it's coming back. There's players on both sides of the net, and obviously, you need to do that when you progress. You can't continue to do static balance. But But Welby Van Horn, I mean, he would go 3 lessons before people hit a ball.
Sure.
You know, Dennis Vandermeer, I asked Dennis, I said, okay, we've studied under you. Do we need to study next? And he said Welby, but he goes, remember, he's the worst resort coach in the world. Because it's like, no, it's not going to be about service. It's not going to be about entertainment. It's like, okay, you want a lesson? I'm going to really give you a lesson, whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brandon. What do you got?
Chris, I know now you've got your guitar in close proximity there. Are you feeling warmed up enough with your vocal cords to give us a?
It's here. It's tuned and ready to boom.
Hey, before you do that, what about Solomon? I know Brandon said that he had worked with a player that was at Solomon's. What was it like to work with Harold Solomon?
Yeah, that was a full-on game changer for me personally and professionally. You know, I have so much respect for Harold and his teaching ability and his intensity. You know, he kept things simple, but his intensity is still high to this day, which is crazy. And he had some incredible players still go through, and still, you know, he's not working anymore. He's finally put the racket down, but he had some high level players come through there, and you know, I was really, really lucky to fall into that position to work with him and the people around him, and you know, that's really where a lot of my tennis coaching, you know, I want to say started. So Harold is the man.
Yeah, the guys that are top 10 in the world, it's amazing. I've met a lot of top 10 players, but the ones that I've got to know personally, just ultra competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Ultra competitive. Who was the player that you said you worked with?
Abbie Altick, who went on to play at UCLA, but I did work with her just purely from a fitness standpoint, as her strength and agility coach, and I was introduced to her through a fitness coach named Mark Wellington.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, he really has an incredible resume. He's worked with 6, it might be more than that now, but number 1 players in the world as their fitness coach. I think Maria Sharapova, Naomi Osaka, kind of being the biggest names. But no, Mark took a job with Laura Robson, and that required him to be with her full time. Obviously, she ended up struggling with some injuries, but during that period, he asked me to then take over his responsibilities with Abbie. And during that time, she went on to win the 16 and unders at Eddie Herr, and obviously went on to have a really incredible career at UCLA. But definitely interesting to only serve in a fitness capacity, and having a background a pretty strong background in tennis teaching. And I really enjoyed that. But I know that you spent some time with her at Solomon's. If you had any insights or background into her training there, it'd be great for the listeners to hear about what she was doing on the court, because that was really, again, not part of what I did with her.
Sure. Yeah, you know, she, you know, Abbie, I worked with Abbie probably when she was 12, 13, and 14. You know, she was actually a pretty shy girl.
Mm-hmm.
But, you could just see that she had some X factors. I mean, just silly competitive. She was going to find a way, and you know, and so were her parents. Her parents were just, you know, they're awesome. They were going to do anything they could and should, and you know, they were respectful of the information that we gave them. And you know, Abbie has an older sister, Frances, who was a really, really good player. So I think Abbie was, you know, learning a lot, you know, watching her older sister play, and Frances went on to play at Vanderbilt. She actually won a national championship, team championship with them. You know, so Abbie's younger years working with Harold and me, you know, again, it comes down to the, you know, Harold was all about consistency. You know, same consistent footwork, same consistent swing. and Abbie was one of those girls who would literally just stay out there all day until she got it right. She was perfectionist in a good way. So that was she was a really, really fun girl to work with, and there was a lot of younger girls around that age that they kind of were able to play against and work on things against, and so it was a really, really good atmosphere for her to develop and obviously go on to have just an awesome career there at UCLA. So good family and good kid.
When you hear tennis family having with my phone here, yeah, with here tennis family getting a child at UCLA and a child at Vanderbilt, they obviously have done a lot of things right. Was Andy Brandy there when you were there, or had he already left for the UCA?
He had just left when I got there, but we still had some good conversations with Andy.
Andy's a lifer. He worked for All American Sports when I worked for All American Sports, so I actually worked for Andy. He's 2 years older than I am, and we were both young, and I was saying, I think Braden's the best, and he was saying, no, I think Vandermeer's the best. Van Horn, Welby Van Horn, and really no one's the best. It's kind of like the conversations on the GOAT. I get tired of those, but so I remember just telling Andy, well, if Welby Van Horn's the best, I need to go work for Welby Van Horn. But I knew that he was there for a while. I think we could listen to a song, but after the song, let's come back to what do you think needs to be done for American tennis, and I think that would tie in with your overall philosophy of developing kids to be able to play all over the court.
Sure, sure. Yep.
What song are you gonna play?
So this song here, it's I can't take any credit for it. It's not mine, but it's a song that's very fitting for me, and obviously we're living in some wild times. So this is a song that's really about what if. So it's called "All Would Be Right with the World." What if my old golden retriever lived to be 100? Our old Bronco still runs 1969. What if we all sat by side, went on more boat rides, wished on a few more stars tonight? Wouldn't that be fine? What if beer and fried chicken didn't make me fat and sticky, and the Braves, well, they never lost the game? What if every sunset job well done ended with a 12-ounce curve? All would be right with the world. What if mosquitoes never bit, but the fish they always did? Every time I drop a line, let my bird disappear. And if people learn life lessons, Randy Griffith rerun, and we only use real guns to hunt duck and deer. What if cigarettes and whiskey didn't try to kill me, and out back I had money growing on the tree, and every morning I woke up right beside you, girl? All would be right with the world. What if beer and fried chicken didn't make me fat and sick, and the Seminoles, well, they never lost the game? Every sunset job well done ended with a 12-ounce curve. All would be right with the world. Yeah, all would be right with the world.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
I think I have to get this in before one. That was fantastic, but two, picking on your older brother as a would-be, could-be, should-be amateur comedian. So introduce Chris and Matt, and tennis camp or some setting, adults, training parents, whatever it is, and say, "This is Chris Cloer. This is Matt Cloer. Matt's the good-looking brother," and everybody goes kind of pauses, like, "Did he really just say that?" And then as they're kind of looking back and forth, and I go, and Chris is the better-looking brother. But I know that your mom, she teases that she can't tell you apart. I mean, I know she says she can't tell you apart on the phone for the first half hour, but the better-looking brother can sing. But we did a function on the court one time to raise some money. So trying to give your brother a hard time, and he stepped right up to the mic, and he did great.
Yeah, he's better than he leads on.
So he can sing. Does everybody in the family can sing?
My sister sings really, really well. And Dad, Dad kind of just can't really carry a tune in the bucket. He attempts though.
Thanks for doing that. It's great. The Renaissance person with
Absolutely.
American tennis. I mean, I know your philosophy. Obviously, we spent so much time working together in the trenches. And for our listeners, we're talking to a trench pro who can put all the hours in and can work with the beginners and is dealing with the truth. I mean, fact-based instruction. Telling people like it is and not sugarcoating it. But that's a question that we ask people online on the podcast. How about improving American tennis? Your brother, I said about Taylor Fritz, he's complimented him saying, he goes, I think he's the most competitive American tennis player on the men's side.
Mm-hmm.
And then he talks about Coco Gauff on the women's side. But, and he has a few shortcomings, but I mean, for him to be on the red clay and, I mean, he just won Indian Wells. I mean, so there's greatness within American tennis. I mean, people are doing well. You don't want to take away from anybody who's at the top. And, you have, people that are winning pro titles and college titles and junior titles. But at the grassroots level, and that's what we're trying to do with our curriculum, what we've assembled is trying to help improve tennis teaching and the kids get a better start in tennis. But how would you, what words would you put that into? How to, with an overall philosophy, how to improve American tennis?
Yeah, I think it's just really, it's one or two words, and it's just basic and fundamental. You just want to have the simplest fundamentals, and just be so simple with how you move and how you hit. And, Roger Federer is obviously such a perfect model for that. How could you not want to, be like him or hit the ball like him and do the things he does? So it starts with just a basic foundation and not just tennis foundation, but athletic foundation. You build that athletic foundation, you find a way to get your kids involved in as many sports as possible, not just to understand the coordination of it all, but to understand the visualization of it a lot too. What do you visualize as a baseball player? What do you visualize as a soccer player? All of those sports, and all those things can help you evolve as a tennis player. Well, what's your peripheral vision of this? Can you see the open space? Can you, look over there and identify, and anticipate what this opponent is about to do based on, the fundamental information that you have? And then it's try to find a coach that just understands, basic fundamentals and stay the course. unfortunately, a lot of players and parents just want that quick result, and they end up jumping ship too early, and they don't like this slow process. Even though when you get to a certain level, it's not slow with what we're trying to do. It's just trying to improve how you hit the ball. There's a Moneyball quote that it's amazing how much you don't know about the sport you've been playing your whole life.
Yeah, that's a great quote.
And so yeah, I mean, it's just I was lucky enough to be to be taught really well by my dad and understand basic grip and fundamentals. And then to continue my education working with Harold, and being lucky enough to work with you, Steve, and all the other people that you've coached, and so it's you just try to tell parents and players that it's just all about being simple.
And I think it's great what you said about Roger Federer. It's called the Summit, and I think there's 40 tennis teachers, and I'm going to guess that anybody in tennis has already got an email because it's really aggressive sales. Just so much marketing. And Florian Meyer, a German who did a year with us as an intern, and then right afterwards he set up online tennis. And so I saw where they they just put it out, master tennis teacher Florian Meyer is going to tell you how Roger Federer hits a tennis ball. And with that, I think people really miss out when they're just going to interpret one stroke what the player's doing at the pro level. In other words, we love to quote Lynette Federer. When my son was 8, his lessons were 1 hour long. He stood in one place, on balance, with long follow-throughs. It's in a biography written on Federer. And, today, Ryan Reedy does a very good job. I spent time with Ryan when he was younger, but he worked for 20 years for one of our students from the tennis tech program, Jim Klein. He does a great job in, high, low, high, inside out, but it was a very good effort by Ian Westerman with Essential Tennis. So Ryan's critiquing his backhand. So it's Essential Tennis and Ryan is 2-minute tennis. Well, it wasn't 2 minutes. Ryan went on, and coming back to being in the trenches. And again, Ryan is fantastic. It's not a negative shot by any means. But Braden taught the grip on the right side of one.
Mm-hmm.
If you worked one-on-one with Vic Braden, and where I was fortunate enough to work for him in many different capacities, where Ryan and I know Jim, they spent several weekends or perhaps a longer a week, or maybe I know Vic came out to Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and whether they went out to Utah. But anyway, that when Vic would be in front of large groups when he had his TV shows, the backhand is on number one. But but if you just with basics, I love what you said about Moneyball. Is people think they know, but no, wait a minute, that's not. That's okay. That's Vic Braden, the resource, but Vic Braden, the man. There's no such thing as a perfect grip, just a grip with the least amount of adjustments. And if you really turn, you really coil, just by coiling and having that hitting arm, if you're a right-hander, say it's a one-handed backhand, that's what they're talking about. It could be a two-handed backhand.
Right.
That the racket head's going to close. And then when you get the racket to go lower, the racket face closes. So, I think sometimes, so they're talking about, okay, it is 45 degrees, and that comes from Braden. Spin the racket 8 times, 360 degrees, divide 360 by 8, it's 45. And so now they're talking about, well, your grip's not quite on one, so it's half of 45. It's 22 and a half. Yeah. Your grip's 22 and a half degrees off. And I'm going, please, come on, guys. First of all, it's just too much. It's just too much. And then, like how they're teaching what to do with the left hand. And it's like, no, that's not how Braden taught it. It's not that, well, okay, Vic was right. And, he'd be the last person to say that, but that you take that left hand on the racket on a one-hand backhand, it goes all the way down to you start the forward swing. And Vic used to say when your left hand goes down by your left knee, there should be a little gadget that says "You are the greatest," because you're finally getting the racket low.
Right.
But again, Ryan Reedy, people should listen to him on 2 Minute Tennis. It's just excellent. But I do think that whether it's Florian Meyer saying, okay, we're going to analyze Federer's forehand, and now we're going to talk about the backhand. I think what has to go with basics is repeat. And I think Andy Fitzell sums it up the best. Nice guy Andy is that let's see the players from the summit that are the top 40 world-class tennis teachers. Maybe it's just a chip on my shoulder. I didn't make the list. And I'll tell you another story to make you laugh. But with what Andy's point is, let's see their beginners hit the ball. The kid who the Bradens and the kid who takes the ice cream cone and puts it in the middle of the forehead. Here's the story. Jan Silva was being sponsored, young American kid, by Patrick Mortigolo. And Jan was one of those kids who just played with one toy. Were you around us back in the day when he was here, Brandon? Mm-hmm. So, this kid, you could teach him to hit a tweener. He's 5-6 years old. So anyway, unfortunately, he stopped for many years. And fortunately, now he's playing college tennis. But anyway, Patrick sponsored the whole family, hook, line, and sinker. They used to come back to the U.S. to work with me. And I was called by GQ magazine, Vanity Fair. This kid was a storyline. They were saying that you had to be top 10 in the world to have more written about yourself than Jan Silva at that time. So anyway, Patrick has some people with his team, coaches, actually more manager types, and they were going to Florida to be in Miami, but so they come and they spend just a very short period of time. It was lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch. So that's quite a few meetings, and they didn't want me to tell anybody that an American was working with Jan Silva and Patrick was funding the project. And I said, I'm not telling anybody. I'm not going to lie if somebody asks me. But anyway, one of the guys from Patrick's corner said, you're a good coach, but we have 1,000 people in France teach just as good as you. And I said, no, my ego's too big. You guys only have 800 people in France that teach just as good as I do. but I think sometimes, we get in trouble where let's look at the very best. Let's look at Roger Federer. It's really ridiculous and work backwards. It's like this is how you teach an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Go back to what Lynette Federer said. He was on balance with long follow-throughs. Roger's not going to really know what he did when he was 8, but his mother and father would. And she was a volunteer coach who started playing tennis late in life and became a good player. And she was asked, why didn't you coach your own son? She said, I was incompetent. I was just a volunteer helper. And those are the historical point of views. Like, okay, let's dig deep and find out what really should happen to help American tennis.
Right.
But yeah, you sum it up in 2 words. That's good. Basics and fundamentals. But Flanagan, with your new green mug here, why don't you wrap it up?
Have you ever been to Ithaca, New York, Chris?
We'll get you a gig there playing. There's a lot of people in the winter like to drink beer.
Absolutely. They love you up there.
Yeah, I'm open.
Chris, it's been a pleasure having you on. Certainly a variety of experiences you've had throughout your tennis career as a player and a coach. And it's been great catching up, great chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. This is awesome. I love listening to these podcasts, so thank you guys for having me on it.
Yeah, it's always great to talk to the Klor brothers, and all the best to you, your family, your family. How's it go? Intermediate family. How's it go? Flanagan? Kind of talked out here a minute, but the mom and the pop, and then your wife and the Bambino and the golden retriever, and all the best. But thanks for singing for the group too. That was That was special.
Awesome.
All right,
Awesome. Well,
Chris.
thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks,
all the
Chris.
best. All right, bye.
All right. Take care, guys.
Good
See ya.
night. Yeah. All right, Flanagan, you got to wrap it up here. Give us a takeaway here. What's craft meat again?
We can't say that on air, Steve.
Okay,
We gotta
can't remember.
we gotta go R-rated to start saying stuff like that. On
we
air.
won't, we won't do that. We're
More of a family podcast.
We're doing well, but there's one person in particular. I think maybe a couple. I think Jimmy Rogers, Freddie Foreman. We got some people that we get on, and sometimes they struggle not saying a sentence without the F word, like every sentence. Colorful characters, but no. Chris saw a complete background in the game. What do you got, Flanagan? Give us the sign off, the send off. You want to sing, Flanagan?
No one wants to hear that. No, Chris. Obviously, like Matt, I think they both said they were fortunate to have their father in their corner as their tennis coach, and they both had a great technical foundation because of that. And then great that they were both able to represent the same college and do so well in school, and now they're both in the profession themselves, giving back in different ways. Chris, obviously now with more in the grassroots and as a trench pro, and Matt with the USTA, and it's great to have another guy out there who's got solid information and is sharing that with a lot of people. So it's been good to have him on, and yeah.
One thing
Very
with
good.
you got Ernie, but you got Pam, the mama bear. So the Jack Kramer story. So Jack Kramer, Braden's hero, such a great player. So he's playing a match, and there's a controversy and arguing with his opponent, and Kramer's father goes to talk to the umpire, and young Kramer's thinking, "This is great. My father's going to take care of this problem." And next thing is the umpire says, "Game, set, and match" to Jones, and he had pulled off Kramer. I had to pulled off the court for not handling himself very well, but Matt, that's a easygoing guy. He doesn't. He keeps it very level, no roller coaster. But there is a story. I think that's value for listeners. Obviously, both the brothers became excellent tennis players. His Matt was acting like a jerk, and his mother came and grabbed him by the earlobe and pulled him off the court. That's where too many times in junior tennis the tail's wagging the dog. Mm-hmm. The parents need to be in charge. Parents don't need to disagree with each other. They can disagree with each other, but not in front of their kids. And the kid's not the franchise. So many lessons, though. But it's always fun, a conversation with someone like Chris. My takeaway would be what he said about Moneyball. Mm-hmm. Because that's something that, when that book came out, I had at least 5 copies were sent to me by people I've trained, and the movie's great as well. And but how's it go? It's amazing. You find out that you don't know anything about the sport you've been playing your whole life, and that's tennis. That was for me a highlight. So many. Our listeners, podcast number 88 and climbing. I hope you found value. Thank you very much for listening. Adios, amigos.
Thank you.